The federal government plans to cut migration in half with tough tests for students and new types of skills visas. Chemist Warehouse is set to merge with Sigma Healthcare to create a $9 billion company. And Donald Trump leads the polls to be the next US president. Welcome to Fear and Greed Business News, Australia's best business podcast. It's Tuesday, the 12th of December 2023. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Now, Sean, after the show, you are speaking today with Prabha Nandagopal, who is a lawyer who worked as a senior legal advisor on the Human Rights Commission's Respect at Work inquiry.
Yes, she now runs Elevate Consulting Partners, and we talked to her all about sexual harassment, how big a problem it is, and changes coming into force today, literally today, for which companies need to be aware of, big or small, doesn't matter. They'll have to abide by these new sexual harassment laws. So, really interesting chat anyway, but if you're a business owner or work in a business, you certainly need to know about these new laws, and Prabha takes us through those today.
Yeah, it's a really interesting conversation. It is coming up after the show today. The main story, though, this morning, Sean, the federal government has unveiled a 10-year migration strategy, including the halving of the annual intake and tougher tests for overseas students wanting to study here in Australia.
The government says there are 5 key objectives for its migration strategy, which include raising living standards for Australians, ensuring good working conditions, and strengthening international relationships. It will introduce a new visa, the Skills in Demand visa, that will replace the existing temporary skill shortage visa. It also outlined 3 pathways to the longer 4-year visa. The first is for specialist skills, attracting highly skilled workers from sectors such as technology and energy. Makes sense. The second is core skills to meet workforce needs with a simpler, regularly updated occupation list to be developed over time, reflecting the job market in Australia. Interesting concept. That list obviously will change as time goes on. The third is for an essential skills pathway with a labour shortage focus for those on lower incomes. The government believes the new pathways will add about $3.4 billion to the budget bottom line over the next 10 years or so. The new migration strategy will also insist students pass a stronger English language test and will require them to prove they are genuine students before they enter the country, while making it harder for them to stay if they don't find jobs that help fix the nation's skills shortages.
Now, Sean, I mentioned the cuts to the intake. What is the migration intake forecast to be?
Well, it's 510,000 last financial year. That was very, very high. It's forecast to fall to more normal levels, down to 375,000 this financial year, 250,000 in 2025. The government says without new policies, migration levels would have remained higher for longer at 440,000 this current financial year and 305,000 the following year. Home Affairs Minister Claire O'Neill said the strategy is to bring migration numbers back to normal, something that has already started happening, according to Ms. O'Neill. In any case, the government definitely wants to reduce the number of migrants coming to the country, though at 250,000, it's still quite a few.
Yeah, that's still a lot of people. Sean, how did local markets perform yesterday?
Well, it wasn't a ferocious day of trading, Michael. The market opened, the S&P ASX rose 20 points or so, and then meandered back through the day till about lunchtime, then kind of did not much, and closed just pretty much where it started, just under 7,200 points. Mostly the banks were higher. They're not Westpac. Wesfarmers did well. So too Woolworths, tech stocks, real estate, or REA, realestate.com, and WiseTech Global. They also outperformed. Not so James Hardie, not so Telstra, not so Goodman Group. Gold stocks were also sold off. The big iron ore miners, though, Rio Tinto and Fortescue Metals, are trading close to record highs as iron ore prices remain high. Among the best performers yesterday were Credit Corp, Magellan Financial, Beach Energy and Lovisa Holdings. That is what? A credit company, a financial services company, an oil company and a retailer. That's an eclectic bunch. That means not a lot of trend there. The gold stocks struggled, while the worst on the day was the Star Entertainment Group. The gaming company closed at 48 cents a share yesterday. A year ago, it was about $2.20 a share. I reckon, well, at the moment it is, and it looks like being the worst performing stock of the top 200 for 2023. Not a moniker you want.
No. Sean, I'm still just stuck on your use of the term meandered to describe the share market. It's just such a peaceful, kind of gentle image. It reminds me of like a stream just meandering through a paddock.
Well, it's kind of interesting. Markets at the moment are really calm. So they have something called the VIX index, which is the volatility index, and that's been all over the place for about 2 or 3 years, or really since COVID. And just now, it's really calm. I think meander is a good word for markets right now. Maybe later on today it might all change, but just right now, not a bad word.
No, it's very nice. It's a very visual thing. I like it. International markets, are they meandering as well?
Not really. Well, Bitcoin isn't. Very fickle cryptocurrencies, aren't they? I mean, the only type there is fickle cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
Bitcoin's value fell 7% yesterday, back towards $40,000 a unit, amid a broader sell-off in digital assets. Smaller tokens like Ether, XRP, Polkadot, and Avalanche also fell. Oil steadied over the past 24 hours, having logged 7 weeks of decline on Friday. Oil's down more than 20% since September. Gold's fallen back below $2,000 a unit, and the Aussie dollar is buying 65.5 US cents. Just while we're on international markets, one of the most famous names in retailing, Macy's, has received a near $6 billion buyout offer from Ark House Management and Brigade Capital, according to Bloomberg. Macy's share price is down 16% this year. Generally, retailers have underperformed on Wall Street. That's on the back of higher interest rates. Now someone's trying to buy one of the very biggest names in retailing in the US, Macy's.
If you were to name your digital token Avalanche, would you expect it to do anything other than fall?
Yes, good point. And you'd expect it to fall quickly with a lot of power.
That's right. Start high and just end up down the bottom. Yeah, indeed. All right. Well, clearly I'm just focused purely on the language that you're using today. I'm going to we'll take a quick break. I'll get myself focused on the substance of what you're saying. We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, Chemist Warehouse Group and Sigma Healthcare will merge and create an $8.8 billion company listed on the ASX in a deal which brings the wholesaling and retailing of pharmaceuticals together.
The new company will be around the same size as Endeavour Group or Treasury Wine Estates, assuming it gets regulatory approval. It'll be around the 60th largest company on the bourse. The long-mooted merger was announced officially yesterday, and it will be one of the biggest deals of the year. It will bring Sigma's wholesale supply of medicines into the big box chain's 600-store network. After the merger, Chemist Warehouse shareholders will own nearly 86% of the combined entity. Chemist Warehouse is a retail powerhouse in the sector. It generates about 70% of sales from front-of-shop items, sunscreen, toothbrushes, makeup, etc. The rest comes from drug dispensary. The average community pharmacy only generates about 27%, versus that 70% from Chemist Warehouse, 27% of its sales from front-of-shop items. Sigma's board told shareholders to back the deal, saying it represents a significant and compelling opportunity, which is expected to create material value for Sigma shareholders.
The battle is on, Sean, to replace Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk, who announced her retirement over the weekend.
Some of the possible candidates are State Health Minister Shannon Fentiman, Treasurer Cameron Dick, and Deputy Premier and frontrunner Stephen Miles. The three leadership rivals have been trying to lock down a deal before Friday's caucus meeting to avoid a contested ballot of MPs. According to media reports, no one wants a contested ballot of MPs. It means a month-long vote of rank-and-file members and affiliated unions. Poor old Anastasia Palaszczuk may be in that job for a lot longer if that's where it goes.
JB Hi-Fi has been accused of selling customers worthless extended warranties for more than a decade in a landmark class action that could actually act as a test case for Australian retailers.
Do you buy the extended warranties?
Oh, I used to, but not anymore, partly because they were quite expensive, but also I kind of figured now that goods are so kind of expendable and relatively cheap to replace a lot of the time that if something goes wrong after kind of 3 or 4 years, that I'll probably just be able to replace it for much the same kind of cost.
Yeah, I bought them over the years, but never ever claimed on anything. I lose it. I lose the documentation.
You know what, Sean? That does not surprise me about you. It's just that is such an Aylmer thing to do, that you buy the extended warranty and lose the documentation, so it's worthless anyway.
Totally. Anyway, law firm Morris Blackburn lodged the class action in the Victorian Supreme Court late last week, describing it as the first of its kind in Australia, alleging JB Hi-Fi's extended warranties were of little or no value because customers already held the same rights for free under the Australian consumer law. According to a report in The Australian, the extended warranties labelled extended care plans or extra care plans. Yep, I think I've bought them both. Anyway, the extended care plans or extra care plans were offered to customers when they purchased consumer electronics, home appliances, home entertainment, and other products. Compensation is being claimed for all customers who bought an extended warranty product from JB Hi-Fi between January 1, 2011 and 8 December 2023. Sure, love to join it if I had the documentation.
That would be the first thing they'd ask you when you call up, going, "Can I join the class action?" Like, have you got any proof? Like, nope, lost it.
Just send me the receipt. Oh, come on.
No. Now, Sean, the federal government's mid-year economic review is due out tomorrow, and it looks like the Commonwealth will be on the hook for about $80 billion in extra borrowing costs.
Yep, that's thanks to much higher interest rates. The good news is that higher commodity export prices and a booming jobs market will drive a massive jump in tax revenue. The net effect means net debt is rising but will peak at a lower level than previously forecast. Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers said higher interest rates are hurting households and they're hurting the budget as well. After reporting a $22.1 billion surplus for 2022-23, which was the first time in 15 years that Australia's finances have been in the black, Dr. Chalmers has flagged that the rolling series of historic tax revenue upgrades has continued into this financial year. He didn't quite say there's another surplus in sight. The made budget forecast a $13.9 billion deficit for this financial year. However, monthly financial statements from the Department of Finance show the deficit is definitely smaller than expected so far. Anyway, we'll find out all tomorrow.
Sean, Papua New Guinea says a merged Woodside Energy Santos would need to put a high priority on the company's investments in the country, as well as retain in entirety its officers and staff for the government to support a mega merger under consideration.
Nothing like a major takeover to bring out the pundits. So PMG Petroleum Minister Karenga Kua told the Financial Review that Santos had preemptively informed the Marape government 2 weeks ago about the talks with Woodside. Over the weekend, both companies opened virtual data rooms ahead of several weeks of due diligence. Any deal's expected to be a low-premium, script-based deal. A full merger would make the combined group easily one of the largest 10 exploration and production companies worldwide. Both Santos and Woodside's share prices rose around 1% yesterday.
Now, Sean, how about these forecasts from investment bank Morgan Stanley? The country's largest media groups will lose $550 million by 2025 and $1.1 billion by 2027 in advertising spending to retailers such as Woolworths, Coles and Amazon.
Yeah, so investment bank Morgan Stanley have downgraded their valuation of the 5 largest ASX-listed media stocks. That's ARN Media, Southern Cross, Seven West, O Media and Nine Entertainment on the back of this analysis by their brokers. They call it a not well understood threat to retail media. Now, retail media is a term to describe advertising by retailers and consumer goods companies that targets shoppers near the point of sale using first-party data. Morgan Stanley forecasts that retail media dollars will increasingly come from the traditional media budgets. That's where the big media companies are going to lose out. So there's a shift from media budgets to retail media dollars. That category, the retail media category, will grow to $2.8 billion by 2027 from about $1 billion last financial year, according to Morgan Stanley. Bad news for the media companies. That's what they argue anyway.
Yeah. Okay, turning to international news now. Hopes for another ceasefire in the Middle East are diminishing, with Israel's bombardment of Gaza narrowing the window for a new truce, the Qatari Prime Minister has said.
Speaking at the Doha Forum, Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani said Qatar would continue its efforts to pressure both sides into a ceasefire, according to the BBC. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over the weekend said the war is in full swing, and in recent days has said dozens of Hamas terrorists had surrendered and were laying down their weapons and handing themselves over. He said this is the beginning of the end for Hamas. The comments come as the humanitarian crisis in Gaza continues to worsen. On Sunday afternoon, the Hamas-run health agency in Gaza said almost 18,000 Palestinians had now been killed.
I mentioned this one at the top of the show, Sean. Donald Trump would win the US presidency in a race against incumbent Joe Biden. A new poll has revealed as the president's approval rating reached a new low in the wake of his unwavering support for Israel in its war against Hamas.
The poll is the first by the Wall Street Journal to give Trump the lead in a head-to-head contest with Biden. It put Trump at 47% support and Biden at 43%. Biden's satisfaction rating also plunged to a record low, with just 37% of those surveyed saying they were content with his performance. Over the weekend, Minnesota Representative Dean Phillips, who is challenging Biden for the Democratic nomination, warned that Trump would win the election unless his party puts up a fresh face, according to the Telegraph of London. Among disaffected Democrats, 55% said the Biden administration's policies had hurt them personally. And despite unemployment being at its lowest level since 1969, 2/3 of respondents said the economy had worsened over the past 2 years. Few problems for Joe Biden and the Democratic Party.
Yeah, certainly is. Okay, up next is the Fear and Greed daily interview with Prabha Nandagopal, who is a lawyer who works as a senior legal advisor on the Human Rights Commission's Respect at Work inquiry. She knows the intricacies of the sexual harassment legislation and all the changes coming into effect from today.
Yeah, and for that very reason, anyone interested in business needs to listen to this, because there are big changes for small and large companies alike in terms of how they treat sexual harassment allegations, claims, etc. Well worth a listen.
Yeah, certainly is. It's coming up next in the Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It is Tuesday, the 12th of December, 2023. Make sure you're following the podcast and please join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson and that was Fear and Greed Business News. Have a great day.